Just talking to Mike for me.
Yabble, 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 yabble. Right.
Perfect.
Okay.
starting in just a couple of minutes, folks, if you'd like to take your seats. I'm tall.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea because it's quite a lot You know, that is really particular. I understand. I can sort of speak
In a place like this, you really want to start with Dearly Beloved, don't you? So, glad you're all here, glad you're all seated. My name's Greg McCarr. I'm one of the two co-conveners of the Scottish Independence Convention. Isabel Lindsay was going to do this. She's going to be doing a fuller part later on in the proceedings, representing the Scottish interest at this international event. A wee bit in housekeeping first. The usual stuff, you've heard it before. I've not been informed of any planned fire drills, so if alarms go off, orderly exit through the nearest exit, if you don't mind, please. The toilets are at the back on the right-hand side, ladies and gents. And if you need a disabled access to toilets, we have straight through the doors at the very back. Keep on going and you'll see another set of doors, and it's on the right-hand side. So that's the fire drill, that's the toilets. As far as breaks are concerned, you'll see in the programme for the day, which you could have picked a programme up at the door, we've got a few comfort breaks in here. We aim to finish round about 5:30 with the whole conference, but then we've got Stan Reeves with several friends are going to be playing some Ceilidh music. Now at that stage, we're actually going to change the seating a bit. The seating at the front here is going to be removed, and we'll ask you all please just to move to the seats at the back. The conference is finished, so there's nothing to see in the platform, but there'll be music at the front. It's impossible in Scotland to play Ceilidh music without some people getting up and dancing. That's why we're clearing space at the front, because we can't stop you, and enjoy it when you do. Also, up until about 7 o'clock, we'll have the music, but there'll also be a buffet at the back. A simple buffet with a small drink, and you're welcome to join for that as well. We'll finish round about 7 o'clock. So just a couple of opening remarks from myself now that housekeeping's out of the way. First of all, welcome to this conference. It's from the International Commission of European Citizens. ISEC is a lot easier to say. And it's a non-governmental organisation that was created to, and I'm quoting this, to gather all those organisations, institutions and individuals who share the vision of a Europe which is both democratic in theory and reality. Obviously, it has quite a strong interest in the concept of self-determination, and in fact that was well stated in its 2016 resolution of Venice, which was endorsed by the Veneto Parliament. I'll read that to you. It said, "We therefore recognise that whenever the exercise of the universal right of self-determination is rejected by the state institutions, citizens and nations of Europe can do and should do the only thing possible, unilaterally exercise through the representative democratic parliaments this right that is configured by its nature in the international law framework." Clearly, there's going to be plenty of discussion about the concept of right to self-determination, how it's exercised, how it takes effect. That's going to be coming from the speakers today. We had another declaration that was read out this morning in the Scottish Parliament, and with the delegates here visiting the Parliament, and they'll be discussing that with you today, later on in the agenda. Those delegates represent Greenland, the Faroes, Scotland, maybe you're not surprised at that, Wales, Ireland, Flanders, the Veneto, Sardinia, Sicily, South Tyrol, Catalonia, the Basque Country, Corsica, and the north of England. So, thanks to all the people who are going to be rotating on the platform. We'll have 5 nations of regions represented at a time and then rotate to another session, 3 sessions. Thank you to all of the delegates from the various parts of Europe. Thanks also to you who have turned up to be a participative audience. We will have roaming mics at the end of each of the 3 sessions for you to ask some questions, and there'll be a bit of to and fro on that. I'm going to also thank, if you don't mind, the organising committee from this. There's a name that will pop up a couple of times in here. First of all, the delegates here all know Shona McAlpin, who is in fact not just the administrator of the Scottish Independence Convention, but she's the instigator of this event, and she's ISEC's representative in Scotland. So Shona is one of the key participants in that. Shona McAlpin. There's also Robin McAlpin. Who did I hear that name? And Robin is a key player in SIC. Many of you will know him as the head of strategic development of Commonweal. The McAlpin brother and sister will be joined. We're joined in organising this by their mother, Isabel Lindsay. I think many of you know Isabel. Some of us have known Isabel for quite a few decades. Isabel, along with herself, we are the co-conveners of the Scottish Independence Convention, SIC. Isabel is a long-term stalwart of the independence movement, but I'm stating the obvious to almost everybody in this room. We have also on the working group, we had Julian Smith, who's here, and Marjorie Wilson, Professor Ian Black, I don't know if Ian's coming until later, and Stuart Kerr-Brown, who is unable to turn up today, but he's been doing the artwork for it. The music today, as I mentioned earlier on, is by Stan Reeves. When the conference is finished, he'll strike up in the corner over there, he and his colleagues, and provide musical entertainment. And as I say, if you happen to stand up and move around a bit, on you go. Those from abroad might recognise a few of the tunes that Stan is going to play. He's tried his best to try and provide some music which would be quite recognisable to you. For the event, the Roman mics will pick you out. Leslie Riddoch, who I'm not going to introduce Leslie because the world knows Leslie. She's been around so much of Europe and she's very well known in Scotland. One of our greatest national treasures, to be frank. She's going to be chairing the proceedings today. There will be roaming mics. Leslie will call the speakers in turn. I think I've said about all that I need to at this point, so what I'm going to do now is hand over to Leslie Riddoch. And thank you, Leslie.
Thanks very much, Greg. With mention of national treasure, I'm sort of looking behind me to see if Judi Dench is stashed somewhere. She's not. I was also tempted to do the old Willkommen, Bienvenue, and then realizing those are the big countries. Those are the established state languages. And today is really all about not that. It's about everything that is a community with an identity, a nation sometimes, a region with clear identity, absolutely. Places that make sense to everyone that lives there that just don't really get that recognition in most respects. And the great thing for Scots who are keen to see independence for this country, this nation, to become a state, as we were once, is that we're not alone. That this is actually a condition across Europe, and you'll hear with many different perspectives. And I hope we'll find today a very cultural base to much of the campaigning that goes on, which is something I think we could pick up. Perhaps reassuringly, we'll discover also that people find that they actually struggle to keep united whilst they're waiting to try to get a step forward. We've got that. And perhaps a frustration at politicians. I know there's one speaker at least you'll hear from soon who very much feels like that. How does it all get resolved while we're waiting? And what are we doing? I hope that's what will come through to the fore, and I'm not going to stand in the way of this because we are almost on a speed dating level of speed this afternoon with so many speakers, and they've come such a long way. In fact, could we start off by just giving a thundering applause and welcome, please? Now, I did say that people could come and stand here, but that's obviously because I'm a stander in life. I think everybody else is quite happily sitting. Are you? See, there's my first gaffe. So I've actually wasted a microphone over here that could have been sitting on the table. But anyway, we could try and sort that as you're speaking. But let me introduce the first speaker, who's over on my extreme right, in no other sense than on that table. Her name is Begotchu Olaziola, and she's a Lordy from the Basque Country. She's a linguist and teacher, co-author of the Basque language course, Colloquial Basque, by Routledge, and she's a member of a Basque pro-independence think tank. She was born in the Basque Country. She became a teacher of Basque for adults. She's actually lived in Dublin and Wales, where she worked as a research assistant, developing a database on European minority languages, and is back in the Basque Country now as a teacher and a member of the Catalan Assembly. That's a digest of a very colourful life. Would you please welcome Begotchu? Just talk into it and see if it works.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
I'd bring it maybe
ready.
closer.
Okay. Arratsaldeon, that means good afternoon in my language. I'm sorry, don't speak.
Begotchu.
A lot closer? Okay. Very close. Okay. Like this? Yeah. Okay, so Arratsaldeon, which means good afternoon in my language. I apologize because I don't speak any Gaelic. I think you say first math or something like that. I do speak Welsh, but not Gaelic. I have the privilege to have been invited here and also to start this. So, but I only have 6 minutes. That's going to be really difficult because it's a very complex situation. Well, we do need to own our future, and we need it because that was stolen from us by conquest and by dividing us into states and 3 entities. Imagine yourself in Scotland had been divided and owned the north by Denmark, for example, why not? And the other half leave it with Britain. Imagine the gap between the 2 societies. Imagine how difficult it would be to collaborate. Imagine having schools in Danish and on the other side in English. Just imagine it for a while. So that's our situation since the last 500 years. So it is complicated, but here we are. Still we are here. We need to own our own future. We don't have time. There is a climate crisis that we have to tackle. We have housing problem that we have to tackle. We have migration problem that we have to tackle. We have work issues. We have health and education. And we don't have 50 years to wait for it. And if we remain in Spain or in France, it is very complicated because, if, for example, in the case of Spain, whatever our parliament, the Basque parliament approves, later on, the Spanish Supreme Court or Spanish tribunals decide is unconstitutional. Emergency laws that we made for climate, for tackling the climate issue, whatever, this is all lost because of the very conservative Spanish mentality. Conservative also about their money, but then they have tax havens like our former king, Spanish former king, so they are very conservative and they are very right-wing and they are not doing the right thing. So we need to run away from a jail called Spain and called France. And also because of the language. I didn't mention it, but the language is in a critical situation, and we do need to be able to do our own legislation and don't fear that the Spanish tribunals will take them down. So where are we now? Well, weak situation in this moment. The Scottish referendum taught us that it is not easy to win a referendum when the state has the tools to use anything, fake news, fear, anything. And then also we learned from the Catalans that a negotiated referendum is going to be impossible with Spain. Spain doesn't respect the right for self-determination, and neither does France. So we have to think of other ways to find an exit from this jail. It is true that we are the feelings in the society go from disappointment to apathy, frustration. For example, there was a grassroots movement, pro-independence. It has disappeared. There is another one that you maybe get to know them because they came with a cheese to Scotland, the Gasta Sativat. And these people, the Guru Escudago, they're still kicking, but they have lost membership and they are into doing performances. But no, I don't see that they really have a roadmap. As for political parties, well, the truth is that I don't want to bore you with the details in all the three parts of the Basque Country, but if I focus only in my little mini Basque Country, the three provinces that have a better degree of devolution, more competencies, if I focus in this mini parliament, mini Basque autonomous region, it is frustrating because it's been ruled by almost 45 years by a nationalistic party in name, the Basque Nationalistic Party, but they haven't moved ahead. And the second party is also nationalistic. They are doing well in elections lately, really doing well. But it's like they have abandoned the independence agenda because they tell you now is not the moment. We cannot make angry the party in power in Spain because we are in a very weak situation, and if this party resigns and there are new elections, the right wing might come. So with this fear that the right wing in Spain will come, what we have is that our nationalistic parties are supporting the Spanish state and the Spanish structures and making it stronger, and that's not in our interest. So in a way, there's little ambition by the part of the Basque political parties. They are happy with managing the meager autonomy that we have. And it's a bit like the Groundhog Day, the film, the Groundhog film, because every time we have a new electoral cycle, again, these political parties come and say, yes, we are negotiating new devolution to our country, but we've been waiting for this for 45 years. And every time they say, oh, yes, this time we are negotiating this and this and this and this, they will come. 4 years ago, we go to vote again. Nothing has happened. They also have these, every 4 years, we have this thing about a bill to change our statutes and maybe to move towards a referendum or towards a greater level of devolution, of self-rule. But this is, again, repeated and repeated. Nothing comes from it. So it's a bit disappointing, unfortunately. However, I think that here we are, with still some people, and some people think that this is the approach being realistic and going step by step. Others, we think that we must try to break away now from Spain and stop supporting Spain and the government. So that the only way ahead is disobedience, is awareness campaigns, is municipalities working on declaring independence on their own, like it has happened, and the unilateral way, and also creating synergies with other people, and that's why I'm glad to be attending this conference. We think that society must come together. The system of oppression that we have must be dealt in different ways. People have different ideas, but no matter the way or the ways we choose to push back, being able to do it together as one is going to be much more effective than doing it from our different silos. Okay, we must always remember that the goal, our North Star, is a free Basque country, and we should focus on that. That's the first thing. And then last thing, and I want to reflect on being inspired by the fact that here we are coming together. That gives me some hope. I've been talking to different people, and this gives me some hope. And I see similar movements across, not only in Europe, but also in the world, indigenous people, etc. And I think that we have to push in the agenda that self-determination and the self-determination issue is a fundamental human rights issue. Okay, not only for small minorities in Europe, but all over the world. Okay, so human rights, democracy. And we have also the responsibility to work with other communities that are oppressed, underrepresented, or minority groups to support each other, to show solidarity, and work together towards freedom, by being able to look at the issue from a more holistic approach, more international approach, so we can obtain that momentum, gather that momentum, and at the same time will help us understand with more sympathy other movements that we maybe don't understand it that much, and other people's groups, because I truly believe, and it's not my say, that nobody is free until everybody is free. So I hope to welcome you to the Basque Republic. Here it says welcome to the Basque Republic, and I hope I can say it someday here.
Right, thanks very much. That's fairly got things off to a start. Now our next speaker is from Catalonia, Ana Arque Isolsona. She's a communicator, consultant, publisher, marketer, has been very involved with communication strategies, and interestingly, and pan-European projects, has lived in England, Portugal, Spain, Morocco, Italy, and France. Begorra, how many other people have lived in 6 countries here? One. I don't believe you. See, I just don't believe that. Anyway, we'll figure that out later. So, she settled in Catalonia. She set up the autodeterminacio.cat website. She's been involved in so many projects, I really can't list them all, but importantly, was the founder and driving force of the national coordinator of the popular referendums. She may speak about that, but importantly, she was founder as well of ICEC, which is the group that's brought us all together here today. That was created pretty much as a result of all the internationalization work done in Catalonia. I've got to say, I was one of that. I was invited over by Diplocat to one of the events there. Cunning, actually, because it's importantly not trying to be diplomacy, because that's a reserved matter for Spain, but it's cultural diplomacy that just happens to be on significant dates where you get an awful lot of information about Catalonia's history. So anyway, she's been part of the governing team of the University Catalana now I wish I'd checked this before, d'Estiu, UCE, as head of their international area. There's so much to say, I'll stop. So I'll hand over. Please, a big welcome for Anna.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Scottish Independence Convention, for this excellent gathering and in such a good timing. And thank you all for being here today. I'm going to be very disciplined, so I'm going to follow my notes because it's really a test to ask us for only 6 minutes. So I'm just not going to be looking at you that much. I'm sorry about that because I want to follow the petition. It was in 2009 that we set to establish an international network amongst nations working to exercise the universal right of self-determination, and in the case being the right to independence. The Catalan team in charge of the coordination of the popular referendums back in 2009-11 did so by carrying high and proud the common flag of democracy, inviting other movements to join in. That's how I met Shona McAlpine, and together with the Flemish, we founded ISEC. Then in 2013, we collected almost 1 million signatures in Europe in support of the universal right of self-determination, with again the same core idea repeated. It's about democracy. And we're grateful to say it once again here today, 2014, thanks to the Scottish Independence Convention. It's all about more, better, a stronger democracy. I'm here as an ISAC spokesperson for the Catalan countries, so let me point out 4 key aspects for those who don't know much about the past and the present of Catalonia, which can well happen even though, or maybe because, you have read a vast amount of mainstream media news, with not much space for an independent site. So there's many things in common with what already Begocho has explained. I'm not going to repeat as how Catalan government is also kidnapped by this socialist support that we give to because of the fear of the extreme right, and that just makes us somehow strengthen the Spanish state, which is very unfortunate. But leaving these points that Begocho already have made very clear, let me say, first of all, Catalonia, we can clearly say that the nation of Catalonia was already a reality in the turning of the first millennia, a sovereign territory with an established system to organize its internal and external relations. First written text found to date, and a seal emblem embraced as a national flag 1,000 years ago. Second, the nation of Catalonia is also known as Catalan countries, as it refers to the Catalan-speaking territory of 15 million inhabitants, which includes South Catalonia, what is now known as Catalonia within the Spanish state, North Catalonia within the French state, País Valencià, Mallorca, Menorca, Ibiza, Formentera, the state of Andorra, La Franja, and the city of Alguer. So Catalan language, with all its dialects, is a reality in 4 states: Spain, France, Italy, and Andorra. This last one, Andorra, grants the Catalan language the status of being a UN's official language. Despite that this status is still denied by the European institutions, even though Catalan has more speakers than many other languages which are UE official. We repeat once more, it's about democracy to let people speak their language when being represented in the official spaces of European governance. Third, today the nation of Catalonia is being trapped, encapsulated into a fake autonomy within the Spanish state, and even less than a fake autonomy in the French state. The reason is no other than the long-lasting Spanish and French imperialism and the violent occupation of Catalan territories, pretending it's all okay to have it perpetuated to this day, currently fitting as the so-called democratic states. Okay. They have not stopped their violence, physical and or constitutional, and despite all Catalans have not, and we will not stop fighting back while bringing dignity and democratic victories. Som i serem gent catalana, despite their dictatorships and ongoing phases intense of cultural genocide. And fourth and last one, democracy requires to be exercised. So it does not entangle as a beautiful entelechy to dream about. If it's not every day, it's not democracy. Democracy is mainly perceived as a right, but it's also a duty. It's the 1st of October in 2017, Catalans vote and won a legal, official, binding referendum. That's how it was publicized. So this is how it was defended by millions of Catalans voting that day. However, after the non-surprising Spanish threat of violence, Catalan politicians decided to obey the authority of the state instead of the authority of the people, the authority of the ballot boxes, the authority of democracy. The latest consequence of such mistake, last elections, almost 1 million independentists, which are still independentists, did not cast their vote because dignity and democracy are a tight, powerful combo. We're ready to win, so let's all of us together go for it. Visca els països catalans i visca el poble que els farà lliure. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Anna. I must say, as I was listening, and she was making the point that having so many different languages and dialects is kind of almost used against Catalans as suggestion that they're not a proper people. Some of you may know I can bore about Norway for a long, long time. And when they became independent as a country, they had 4 languages. They still have 2 languages and 18 official dialects, and they're a country. Anyway, I merely say, let's move on now to Galicia. This is going to be interesting because our contributor is going to speak in Galician, which you all understand, yeah? Which you might pick up some of. We'll have a translation. Now, actually, I really think your English is great, but never mind. I wouldn't fancy trying to speak in another language to a group like this. So can I just say this is Daniel Saido Path. He is a sociologist and a journalist, and his big expertise is international analysis. So he's written for loads of different media across Europe and in an international capacity. So I'm just going to hand over to him. You're also a sitter? Yes, so you understand that. Why don't you just, anyway, never mind. So please, a warm welcome for Daniel.
Muito obrigado por esta invitación a poder falar con tantos vos compañeiros. Sinto que o meu inglés non sexa suficientemente bo, mas ca imposición dunha lingua imperial como a española, penso que xa copamos o noso espazo. A loita do pobo galego é unha loita realmente antiga, unha loita que parte do primeiro reino medieval da Europa e que pouco a pouco foi solapada, foi desterrada destas loitas de autodeterminación pola historiografía española. Daría para falar moito, pero intentaré ser breve para facilitar o traballo aos compañeiros. Durante moitos anos a nosa historia foi totalmente vilipendiada, solapada, tapada e con ela tamén a nosa lingua. Por iso para nós resulta imprescindível a día de hoxe seguir defendendo a nosa lingua, o noso idioma, o galego, ali onde estemos. Nós vivimos evolucións liberais como o rexurdimento, loitamos durante moitos séculos e a día de hoxe seguimos con esa chama, con esa antorcha da loita pola autodeterminación con moitos outros povos como o catalán, o escocés, Euskal Herria, Sicilia e todos estes compañeiros que hoxe nos acompañan. Non debería explicar moito máis porque tal e como fixeron as compañeiras que tamén sufren a opresión do Estado español, nós tamén fomos víctimas do franquismo e non só do franquismo, sino dunha falsa democracia que se prolonga ao largo dos anos intentando trapar unha máscara o que segue sendo a día de hoxe a represión do Estado español. Xa para rematar, non estenderme máis, simplemente decir que a nosa loita continúa viva, a loita da Galiza é unha loita de autodeterminación, unha loita de irmandade co resto dos povos, especialmente con todos aqueles povos que loitan a día de hoxe polo seu dereito a ser quen son e a ter un espazo no mundo. Por iso tamén quero recordar especialmente hoxe a ese povo valente, ese povo bravo que a día de hoxe sigue loitando. Palestina, do río a mar, Palestina vencerá. Obrigado.
The history of Galician nationalism is a chronicle of resistance that dates back centuries. The Kingdom of Galicia was one of the first within the Western Roman Empire and played an influential role in Europe for many centuries. However, the centralisation of power in the Crown of Castile eventually absorbed the Kingdom of Galicia, and Spanish historiography deliberately concealed its history, favouring the Castilian narrative. One key episode was the domestication and castration of the Kingdom of Galicia by the Catholic monarchs, who repressed the Galician nobility, destroyed castles, and eliminated the political autonomy of the kingdom, reducing it to a province under Castilian control. In 1846, the Galician Liberal Revolution was an uprising against Madrid's centralist domination, seeking Galician autonomy. However, it was quickly suppressed, resulting into the execution of the martyrs of Caral, a symbol of Galicia's struggle for freedom. At the end of the 19th century, the Rexurdimento resurgence emerged, a cultural and political movement that defended the Galician language and identity, led by figures such as Rosalia de Castro and Manuel Murguia. Oh, that's right. This cultural renaissance was key to revitalizing Galicia as a language and affirming Galicia's identity. Alfonso Daniel Rodriguez Castillo is a central figure in the struggle for Galician nationalism. During the Spanish Second Republic, he championed the Galician Statute of Autonomy, approved in 1936, although its implementation was interrupted by the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War. During Franco's dictatorship, Galicia suffered intense repression, and the use of the language was prohibited in many public spheres. However, the language remained a pillar of cultural resistance. In the modern era, the Galician National Bloc, founded in 1982, has been the main political force representing Galicia's interests, encompassing both autonomist and independence currents. Finally, figures like Moncho Reborias, assassinated by the police in 1975, continue to symbolize the fight for a free and socialist Galicia. The history of Galician nationalism is a constant struggle for sovereignty, justice, and recognition of Galicia as a nation, with the Galician language as a fundamental pillar. Throughout our history in the pursuit of independence, we send our solidarity to the peoples fighting for their self-determination, for their right to live in peace and with justice. And especially, we reaffirm our support for the Palestinian resistance, which represents the continuation of a global struggle for freedom, justice, and dignity. May their struggle also be our struggle. May their victory be the victory of all oppressed peoples in the world.
Nice one. That's good to say. Well, thank you both for that. Now, Sicily is where we're going next with Anthony Graziano. He's a member of Trinacria, which is a grassroots movement that fights for the independence of Sicily. Just a little word on that, which he's given me. Basically, Sicily, he says, a nation within a state whose cultural and linguistic identity and potential for economic development has no place within the confines of the Italian state. The repression of the language, culture, traditions is compounded by some of the highest rates of unemployment and poverty in the European Union. So Trinacria, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, is also an editorial team which produces articles, reports, and publications to try and shed light on the issues and daily realities that Sicilians have to face, and particularly to try and promote and improve awareness of the Sicilian language. One interesting point that he may mention is that he's also a collaborator with the Sicilia Football Association, which is in a campaign to try to create a national football team for Sicily, which would allow them to feel the pain that comes with having your own national football team. So, please, take it away, Anthony.
Sabbenirica a tutti, good afternoon to all. I'm speaking as a member of Trinacria, a movement that fights for political, economic and social liberation of Sicily, thanking our Scottish friends for the invitation to participate in this event. I believe that international meetings like this one are fundamental to jointly trace a common path towards the national liberation of our people. Sicily is a nation without a state, whose cultural and linguistic identity, as well as its economic development potential, find no room within the borders of the Italian state. There are various ways in which the oppression by central states manifests itself. One of these is certainly the oppression of the local language, in Sicily relegated to the status of a dialect and indirect by a suffocating linguistic centralism that prevents its spread and official recognition. The repression of local language, culture, and traditions is worsened by the material conditions in which the local economy finds itself, affected by some of the highest unemployment and the poverty rates in the European Union, widespread underdevelopment, and a lack of basic service. This situation serves to purpose of exploiting the territory, used by the state as a military base, logistical hub, and site for resource extraction and supply, causing the detriment of the environment and the people. All of this leads to a mass exodus of Sicilians towards northern Italy and abroad, with alarming figures showing more than 800,000 Sicilians living abroad and 20,000 living the island annually, causing the depopulation in the interior areas and a percentage aging of the population. While it's true that this colonial mechanism limited the ability to resist and even the development of awareness among the Sicilian people, electing them makes explicit the subordinate role of our land, and it can offer the key to triggering the process of a more or less immediate emancipation. In this sense, we consider it essential to revive the movements and associations born in Sicily in defense of the language, customs, and the local tradition, as well as protests against the centralist policies aimed to against the disintegration of our identity as a people. And we believe, indeed, that trying to revive our people's identity within the struggle can start the process that will lead us to the independence. Among the main struggles carried out this year by our movement is certainly the one against differentiated autonomy, a reform promoted by the Italian government that provides for the distribution of the resource proportional to the wealth of the region, which threatens seriously the economy and the social stability of our island by crystallizing and, in some cases, aggravating the inequalities already markedly present between Sicily and the north of regions of Italy. The signature collection to propose the repeal referendum of the law, which required the guarantee of 500,000 signatures, obtained 155,000 from Sicily alone in just over 2 weeks. A strong signal for us, showing that Sicilians are deeply opposed to the policies imposed by the government in Rome. 10 years after the consultative referendum for the independence of Scotland, a journey, yours, which has been an inspiration and example for the whole independence movements in Europe, we believe that we, too, can start a process driven by this repeal referendum that can finally lead us to a referendum for the self-determination. From here, from Scotland, from this symbolic place, we choose to demand the right for all people to decide their future, their economic development, their culture, their economy, whether to stay or leave the land, the possibility of remaining within or outside the borders of the state in which they find themselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And the final speaker on this group is Alessandro Cucco, who has an academic background in international relations and European studies. Since 2021, he's been a member of the Assemblea Nazionale Sarda, which is a democratic cultural association for anyone who wants to develop Sardinian national consciousness. He took on the role of international coordinator this year and has been forging alliances with other European independence movements and organised a international conference on the National Day of the Sardinian people. So that's a very good start. And please welcome Alessandro.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today and spending this time with you representing Assemblea Nazionale Sarda. It's a great honor. I'm here, I'm arrived just yesterday late in the night, so I didn't taste it yet, one of your Scotch whiskies, but I will, I promise, I will do tonight. So let me start with a question. I think it's something that we can discuss later. What does it mean for a nation like ours to reclaim its place in history? It's about isolation, or is it about dignity and self-respect? I'm saying this because not many people know Sardinian history in Sardinia, Netherlands. However, while you are excused for not knowing, we are not, at least not anymore. This is one of the reasons why Assemblea Nazionale Sarda born in 2019. Sardinia has a history spanning thousands of years, and during that time it had moments of independence. I don't know if you know the Judicato of Arborea was one of the state of Sardinia. And during this time, under the rule of Eleonora d'Arborea, an advanced legal code for its time was created, the Carta del Logo, which lasted for centuries and was one of the first constitutions in Europe. With Sardinia inclusion in Italian state in 1861, Italian culture and history took over. We were taught to see ourselves as backwards, provincial, and to think of our language as just a dialect, instead of recognizing it as a fully fledged language. This imposed narrative deeply affected how Sardinians view themselves. But today, with Assemblea Nazionale Sarda, we are trying to change that. So, what is Assemblea Nazionale Sarda? We are a democratic, non-partisan, pluralistic cultural association that works to build Sardinian national awareness. The understanding that we are a people, that we can determine our own destiny as a nation, protecting our interests and well-being. This is the first essential step toward a conscious, free and independent society. We work to protect and to promote Sardinia's language, history and culture. We organize regular events, local events like Sardinian language games, historical and Sardinian tracks, books presentation and something else, but we also host two major national events. The first one, the most important one, is Ceilidh de Sardinia. It's the day of the National Day of Sardinian people, which celebrate the expulsion of the Piemontese in 1794. For many years, this important moment in our history was forgotten or minimized, but we are bringing it back to the heart of our culture, reminding ourselves that history matters. The second one, which is in place today and tomorrow in Sardinia, is the Faulas Festival, the Lies Festival, which aims to break down stereotypes about Sardinia. Our island is often seen as a place of myths, exotic folklore, but through Faulas, we tell the real stories of Sardinia, stories that show that richness and modernity of our culture. We are not people stuck in the past. We are a nation with a future, like you. One of the most common prejudices, and I'm coming back to the question to the first question I posed. One of the most common prejudice we hear in Sardinia is that independence movements want to isolate themselves. We've all their right. They say independence movements want to cut themselves from the world, but our presence here today, during the Faulas Festival in Sardinia, is proving that isn't true. We are not here to isolate ourselves, we are here to connect. We are not here to withdraw, we are here to engage. Our presence in this symbolic place today shows that independence means to build bridges, not walls. Independence is not being alone, it's about being free to choose our own path. Our presence here has a great symbolic value. It shows that our struggle for independence is not isolated. We are part of a larger movement of stateless nations across Europe seeking recognition and respect. We are here because we believe in solidarity. Together, Sardinians, Scots, and all the other people, we can build a better future. A future where every nation, big or small, has the right to determine its own destiny. And that future is built on cooperation, democracy, and mutual respect. Together we can create a more inclusive Europe where every voice is heard. We must act now. And so I leave you with one final question. If not now, when? When we, as nations, have the courage to reclaim our rightful place. Our struggle is not against anyone. Our struggle is not against anyone. It's for something greater. It's for dignity of our people. It's for strength of our culture and the freedom to choose our future. Let's continue walking together, not just as Sardinians and Scots and all other nations, but as people who believe in the power of self-determination. Let's build a Europe where every nation is free to choose its own future. Thanks a lot. I have just one gift to Shona McAlpin. I want to thank you again for your warm welcome, and I have a small gift from Assemblea Nazionale Sarda. Just a moment.
Just to our friend, good, our friend on the microphone has picked this up. I'm on this microphone now, this one being for the audience. So, did I actually hear you say thank you for the warm weather? You didn't say that, did you? No, okay, that's the speakers don't work so well this way round. Right, folks, questions. We've got time for questions to the panel. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your contributions.
Use it like a rock star, girl.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Should know this by now. My name is Marlene Halliday, part of Pensioners for Independence in Scotland and various other groups. You all live in the European Union. Scotland, of course, are no longer in it because England voted to leave. I was just sitting wondering, are you able to have any, talk or, interactions with, say, the European Parliament? Are they interested in what your aims are? Do they talk to you about it? Is there any support coming from there, or do they always leave it to the individual countries involved?
Right, what I'm suggesting we do is take 3 questions and then let people pick which thing they want to answer, because otherwise there'll be a lot of going backwards and forwards. So that is really, I can see from the ironic smiles on the faces of everyone on the panel that the European Parliament and its institutions have apparently not been that helpful, but that's the first question. Right, second question, Kieran, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we need to have a man. For balance. Hi, Kieran.
That's nice. So, my question to you, I'm Kieran van Sweden, and I'm co-presenter of Autonomics, and it won't surprise most of the people that are here that I want to know, have you been looking at your currency options to be an independent country?
Right, so currency options for you as an independent country. Yeah, you thought you were going to get a whole lot of easy questions, you guys, but no. Right, we've got our token man up there. Thank you. Don't be shy, guys. Come on now, you can ask questions. Yep.
Hi, I like Bigotsu's reference to disobedience, and I'd be interested in the other speakers' thoughts about what that looks like in your regions, in your nations, and the balance between disobedience and working within the system of the state. Thank you.
Yep, good one. Okay, one more guy. Come on, another guy. There we are, further up the back.
I wonder if the speakers could speak to the whether or not in your own national context how your vote is split demographically. For example, is there a class basis to the nationalist movement in your countries? And if so, which class supports it? That would be an interesting, some interesting information if you could share that with us. Thank you.
Right, okay. Well, those are 4 zingy questions, actually. So, in case you didn't hear them perfectly, the questions were, has the EU, being in the EU, helped you? The second was, have you plans for what currency you would use as independent countries? The second one is disobedience. What do you think? And the fourth one is there a class basis to your movement? So I guess people will probably want to speak about all of them, and we have, sadly, just your friendly mic, the single one that's there. So let's just start and go. Is it all right to go along the panel like this? Yep. And just to say, because there's a lot of echo here, it helps if you're closer to the mic, but don't absolutely bellow. So, you know, that just means to stay close to the mic. Thank you.
Well, not being an expert, European Parliament won't help, per se. First you've got to believe in yourself and declare your independence. Then maybe, but it's a club that defends themselves. So we cannot expect much. Of course, it's another place where we have to fight as well. Currency, far from that, myself. I think first is independence, then we'll think what the options are. Maybe EFTA, maybe Euro, I don't know. I'm far from that. I'm not an economist, so I can't answer. I don't know about them. There are other people coming in the other session, so maybe there's an economist. Disobedience, yes. I think it's the only way, really. And based on class movement, they always tend to say that it's based on bourgeoisie. I don't think it is the case in the Basque Country. I think it's across a lot of classes, social classes, maybe not the high class because they tend to support the Spanish interests or the French interests, but I think it's across the social network.
Just Bigotche, before you, what kind of disobedience are you either planning or doing?
We're already doing disobedience that is not violent, but try to think in other ways to alter the status quo, like declaring independence in the municipalities, so working on that, like they've been arrested now, having an event for the language, for example, a race for the language, and crossing the border between the southern Basque Country, supposedly in Spain, and the northern Basque Country in France, and crossing with migrants, for example, that are camouflaged with us, among us. So things like that can make people think of different issues. So I won't reveal here, but it's disobedience based on non-violent means.
Okay, Alessandro?
So I'm coming back to the question of a European Parliament, because for Sardinia it's kind of, the symbolic question, because we are in the section, in the electoral section with Sicily, and now I have to go against you, but we have no representative members in the European Parliament because we are in the same sections. We have one 1,005,000 inhabitants against 5 million inhabitants of Sicily. So we don't have any member representing Sardinia. This is a problem. And so I don't know how we can change it, but we have to change. And I hope that our future can be better and can be changed by the European Union. So.
Okay.
I'll do like Begochu, so one after the other. First of all, the European Union. Okay, for me, I think it's very important that we differentiate what is Europe, that what is the European Union, because there are different realities, different history, different meanings. Secondly, I don't think European Union sometimes has been like, I go to the European Union, like if it's a door that says European Union and that's it, that is it. No, it's very complex and it's huge. And the European Union, you have the European Parliament, where it looks like it's very democratic because we have the people that we have voted through the political parties, but there's other institutions that they don't seem that democratic because we don't choose who are the members, who are the ones running the show there. So, but at the same time, I don't think that, I think like in every other aspects of these institutions, you do have people supporting your cause, and you have people they don't, but normally they're not that free either because they are from political parties. So it depends on the moment when your ideology is governing more than the other. So basically, it's fine, they're there. It's politically wise to know which doors to choose, which doors to talk to. But again, sovereignty is on us. And we need to know which are our rights, and that's it, and go to exercise them. On respect of the disobedience, well, disobedience has an issue, well, has many issues, but it has one in the concept, that is that you are disobedient to somebody, there's somebody that is authority, which you are not. So I don't really like this setting from the beginning. Because we're already saying that there's somebody that is the authority that you disobey. So I prefer to say that actually we are obedient to ourselves. We are obedient to our democratic mandates. We are obedient to our parliament, who are the ones that should set our laws and our debates. Let's be obedient to ourselves, to democracy, to our values, to self-determination. And if that means we're going to be in conflict to that authority that is not that democratic because it doesn't share our values, then let's be it. We'll see which are going to be the ways we obey ourselves, we obey democracy, and that would mean to disobey them. But I don't like the situation which I am like the one disobeying somebody that is ruling. We are the ones ruling ourselves, and that's how I think we should be looking at it, and maybe start changing this. And about the currency, yeah, I think that there are different options, but actually I think sometimes we should keep for ourselves some cards and let's see how we negotiate things. We'll see what will be our interest. We'll see if how we're going to play it along, and maybe it's good to stay with the euro, maybe it's not, maybe who knows. Let's walk. And while we're walking, maybe sometimes there's a new corner, there's a new, and we have to play the cards like that. I think there were 4. Sorry, and now I don't remember which was the other one, but I'm sure my colleagues will answer to that one also. Thank you.
If I can speak Italian, it's a problem.
Yes. It is a problem. Well, how many people understand Italian
for a complete...
okay, we've got 3 people that can get it if you choose that. Are you able to translate? I'm not sure. Well, you sound kind of pretty chipper.
Penso che diciamo, il ruolo del Parlamento europeo comunque per la Sicilia non sia decisivo perché comunque ad oggi la Sicilia ha una sua autonomia, come diceva anche Alessandro, riusciamo ad avere più parlamentari europei, ma nonostante ciò di fatto le catene all'interno del quale appunto la Sicilia è, diciamo, relegata non portano a nessun tipo di risultato, quindi per essere anche sintetico così da non mettere in difficoltà il...
Well, you need to get the microphone because no one can hear you. Come up. Big hand of applause. Right. Go on. Up come.
So,
What's your name?
Ernest. I come
Okay.
with Catalan side. Well, the role of the European Union is not decisive, you said. So you have your own autonomy. So this is where you have to work, right? Is that the point, or? Mm-hmm. So they don't have a direct deal with the European Union. So this is it. Yeah. Oh, the other question?
I think you can honestly do this, you know. But anyway, was that all you said? That seemed long, you know. Was there something else? The most of it, was it? Okay, I'm sorry, because look, none of us could speak either Italian, Galician, or anything. Right, are you in the same situation? Right, have you got... Okay, so here we'll do a double act.
Bueno, falarei tamén na miña lingua, afortunadamente Ana me pode... Sí, cortito. Ana me pode entender. Por resumir, a hora de preguntar por a divisa, a moeda ou a estructura parlamentar europea, eu diría que realmente ese non é o problema. O que nos temos que preguntar directamente que tipo de relación social queremos e a partir de aí a moeda, os parlamentos virán absolutamente dados. Si lle preguntáramos a Estados Unidos que... Sí.
Let's go by bits because I don't have a pen to... so basically says that it's not the specificalities which is a problem. Let's just first face what is the type of social relationship we want with this Europe. And now he was going about the States.
Si lle preguntáramos aos Estados Unidos fai bastantes séculos que tipo de estructura terían no futuro, probablemente ele sonaría moi novedoso para o Reino Unido daquele entonces falar tamén de independencia, falar de loitas políticas, pero a día de hoxe a súa independencia é un feito tamén. Por tanto, son os povos os que construen o futuro e as súas estructuras.
Well, that's a really good point because it's saying, what about when the United Kingdom and the States, if they were going to be asked what is going to be the future structure, and then finally the way it has gone is not, well, in his opinion, maybe you have others, but it has gone pear-shaped. I mean, it has not been so great about it. No? So let's just see which is what the people's sovereignty will end up deciding about which are going to be the structures, the currency, etc., whenever we have the chance with our independence to decide about that. See? Okay.
E para rematar, cando se pregunta tamén que tipo de loita pola independencia vamos a ter, eu diría que eso non depende tanto dos povos que estamos oprimidos, sino que depende dos povos que nos están a oprimir, dos opresores. Moitas veces, supoño que a pregunta tamén iría por aí, isto vai pola vía violenta. Eu penso que as vías violentas non son as vías que elixen os povos oprimidos, porque nós temos fillos, temos pais, a ninguén lle gusta esa vía. É a vía que nos impón o opresor. Esperemos que as nosas independencias se construan de forma pacífica, que é o que todos queremos.
Yeah, right, and that's really like how it went with Catalonia, right? When they were asking, what about the Spanish violence, no? And he's saying that, well, yeah, disobedience or violence. We should really look at who we have in front of us and they use violence. Because obviously, normally, the ones we are working for independence, for freedom, for self-determination, are not the ones that actually are there just going to be violent. We have kids, we have parents, we have enough of being used to this violence from the states. No? So that's something that we also have to look at, that is sometimes not in our hands, but really which are the ones that we are facing, right? Yeah. That was, I was saying, it was in Catalonia when they were saying, how are you gonna use violence? How are you gonna? We're saying, well, it's the Spanish who are attacking us. The Spanish using the violence. So you should ask them. I remember with all the international journalists, you should ask them about violence, not the Catalans, which of course some of us we are pretty disposed to defend ourselves. That's true, but not attack.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Can we have a huge round of applause for this panel, which is Bigotto, Anna, Daniel, Anthony, and Alessandro. Thank you. So, we just have 5 minutes here for anybody wanting to use particular facilities, talk to each other. I'm afraid this is a Kirk, so there's no booze. I don't think there's teas or coffees. You can rejoin us in 5 minutes. Thank you. Right, can some...
The mic stand seems to...
Yeah, we need to get your colleague down to just because... Sorry, just let me... need to get the sound.
London, a mission to the EU in Brussels, and diplomatic representatives in 6 other countries, including the United States. It's the newest one. However, we do not have full competence in the field of foreign affairs, which presents many challenges. To understand a movement for independence in a country with only 55,000 inhabitants, let's take a short walk down our history lane. In 1380, the Faroes, as a Norwegian crown land, came under the Danish king, although still part of Norway. But when Norway was separated from Denmark by the Treaty of Kiel in 1814, the Faroes remained with Denmark along with Greenland and Iceland. In 1816, the Faroe Island became a Danish administrative district, what they call an amt in Denmark. And the old Faroese Lagting, or parliament, was abolished. It was re-established in 1852, but now it functioned only as a consultative body for the Danish authorities. World War II was a real game changer for Faroe Islands. During the war, the Faroe Islands were occupied by the British, while Denmark was occupied by the Germans, cutting off all contacts between the two countries. By the way, it was a lot of Scottish soldiers in the Faroe Islands during the Second World War. During the war, the islands managed on their own and sustained themselves by shipping fish to the United Kingdom through dangerous seas, and our flag, Mesje, was approved by the British so that fishing vessels could sail under Faroese flag. This had great, of course, significance for the independence movement. After the war, it became clear that the people wanted a new political status for the Faroe Islands. So, in 1946, an independence referendum took place on the 14th of September. To the great surprise of the authorities, the result of the referendum was a narrow majority in favor of full independence. Therefore, on the 18th of September, the Speaker of Lagtinget declared independence. However, Denmark did not recognize the declaration. The Danish King Christian X dissolved the Lagting and called for a fresh election, which were won by the Unionist parties by a small majority. While the islands didn't gain independence back then, they were granted greater level of self-rule through the Home Rule Act of 1948. After Home Rule came into effect, the role and the work of Lagtinget, or Parliament, fundamentally changed. In 1973, Denmark joined the European market, the EU, but the Faroe Islands chose to remain outside. The main reason, and it remains so, was the common fishing policy. Under the Home Rule Act, certain areas came under Faroes jurisdiction, and negotiations between Faroes and Danish authorities they negotiate if, for example, we want to take over the police force, which still is Danish, we can negotiate on that. All other matters can be transferred when the Faroes so choose themselves. We have taken responsibility for a wide range of areas, most of the important domestic matters, as I mentioned earlier. Those matters that cannot be transferred to Faroes jurisdiction unless we choose full sovereignty include the Danish state constitution, citizenship, nationality, the Supreme Court, and foreign security and defense policy, as well as monetary policy. The problem is, we often fall between two stools because we are neither an independent country nor a fully integrated part of another country. A current example of this is the Faroe Islands' desire for independent membership in the World Trade Organization. The organization allows it, but Danish legal experts in the Ministry of Justice argue that it's not possible because Denmark is already a member. Well, we are outside EU, so no, why not this? To address this, the Prime Minister of the Faroe Islands and Denmark have agreed to form a committee with representatives from both countries to try to reach an agreement. But if they cannot reach an agreement, the matter will be decided on by 3 Danish Supreme Court judges. The fact that we cannot secure separate memberships in international organizations of such fundamental importance to our national interests highlights this serious limitation of not having full independence. Although the population in Faroe Islands is divided on the issue of full independence, there is a broad political support for greater decision-making power in foreign policy, which ranks high on the political agenda. If our nation, and this is what all this convention is about, is to enjoy the same opportunities and freedom as other nations, we need to face the future on equal footing with other nations. So yes, let's aim together for a future with independent people working together for a better future for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Bjørst. Our next speaker is from Greenland, Akka Hansen. She's an Inuk film director, advocate, and activist. She's active in the decolonialization debate and works with the subject in films, art, and writing. She's known for fighting for Inuits' rights to tell their own stories, but her interest also revolves around gender, queerness, and matriarchal ways of life amongst the Inuit people. So please welcome Akka.
Assut qilararnikuunga inuppassuit uattulli kissaataqartut sinnattugaqartut peqatigisinnaallugit taamaamma qoyanaruissuaq. Thank you so much. Thank you to Shona for inviting me here. I have been looking so much forward to be amongst other people who have the same dreams and hope as our people do. We are in the Inuit, that our people call ourselves, are in the same kingdom as the Faroese people, and yet we have a completely different standpoint. We are a recognized indigenous peoples, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our history, because we were colonized by a Norwegian priest who came to Greenland in 1721. And sometimes people ask me, when did the independence movement happen or start? And I always say that it started then, because, we don't have it in our history books, but I'm sure that my ancestors were fighting colonization then, and we still are today. So in 53, when the UN was founded, it was no longer an option for Denmark to keep Galaslit Nunat as an official colony, and they were smart enough, in their own opinion, to convince our people that we could be a municipality of Denmark, even though our country is so far away from Denmark. They basically put us in as a territory of Denmark. Then from the 50s and in the 60s, the Danish government put in a lot of laws that were not in our favor. They were basically, I refer to this part of our history as the worst part of colonization, because it was a lot of violence that were happening then, especially for women and children. They put in different experiment, they called them, when they were taking children away from our island and placed them in Danish homes to make them Danes. They also, it recently has been come out that there was a IUD campaign to sterilize our women, and it's it's I have to say this because it's something that everyone in Greenland has been affected by. It's in everyone's family that this has happened. Then in the 70s, there was a big movement that happened then for independency, and in 79 we managed to get a home rule, which meant that we were able to take home the governments of culture, education, health, and different other important areas, but somehow also the kind of softer areas, I would say. So in 2009, we voted yes to have a self-government, which meant we took home more areas, but still today we are under the Danish constitution, even though we never voted for it. And 32 different areas like foreign policies, just like the ferries, are controlled by the Danish government. And those are areas we obviously want to be in control of ourselves. And also 2009 was the first time that our people were recognized as a people, even though we still, in my passport, it says I'm a Dane, I'm Danish. We don't have a way to be recognized as Inuit. So in 2020, there was this happening where our prominent colonizer statue that's placed in Nuuk were painted, and with that also the fire was lit again for the decolonization and the independent movement that I'm happy to be a part of today. And I also want to recognize that I stand upon the shoulders of other people before me who fought for this to be happening. So yeah, very short, but that's a recap of what's happening in Greenland. We are fighting for full autonomy and independence from Denmark, and yeah, I hope it will happen. I just want to end off by reading a poem that I wrote recently, and I have a book coming out soon, and it's all about decolonization and also dreams. This one is called I'm a Dreamer. I dream about independence, about freedom, about happiness. I dream for kids, for women, for our people. I dream for my ancestors, for the future, and for myself. I dream during the day, during the night, and every moment in between. My dreams feel like opportunities, like nightmare, all things but possible. People tell me I'm naive and unrealistic, but all I know is I'm a dreamer. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aka. You're in a room of dreamers, so I hope you feel the love. Right, our third speaker here is Paul de Carle, who's from South Tyrol. He got very involved fairly early on in his life, looking at the protection of the German and Ladin ethnic group in South Tyrol. He's been studying political science, he's built up professional skills, and he's been a member of the Südtiroler Schützenbund as a representative for freedom-seeking people throughout Europe, and he's on the board of the ICEC. Now, I was going to sort of try and do a condensed history of South Tyrol, because I thought, I don't know anything about this. And I just suspect I might get this wrong in crucial areas, so I'm going to leave it to you, actually, which I imagine you might be doing. So please give a warm welcome to Paul.
Is this is working? Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really a pleasure. Oh, can we make it a little bit perfect?
As tall as you, actually.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Very tall.
No, it's really, really a pleasure to stay here today with all these independence-seeking people. And for me especially, it's my first time actually in Scotland, so I'm more than glad to show you a little bit in this 5 minutes the case of South Tyrol. As maybe of you don't know where actually South Tyrol is, it's from a geographical point the border between Italy and Austria. Nowadays it's an Italian region itself, but more than 100 years ago, before the First World War, it was actually since 100 years part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And as said, as Italy won the First World War, let's call it like this, it was actually annexed by it. We can really speak of an annexion as at this point 79% of the population were German or Latin speaking, so really, really the majority itself. But after the annexion itself, the bad time didn't stop itself. As all of you know, in this time, fascist parties were rising all over Europe, and it started crucially in South Tyrol, where they came as it first. And with this time, the darkest time in South Tyrolean history started really. The German and the Latin language was forbidden, also in public, in schools. The flag was forbidden. Our traditional clothes were really we were not longer able to wear them in public. And yeah, the peak of this evolution, of this negative evolution, was really a treatment between the fascist dictators Hitler and Mussolini, where they said, well, one gets the land, one gets the people. So if you want to stay in this time, it was 1939, if you want to stay in this time in South Tyrol, in the region itself, you must become an Italian citizenship. You have to give up all your culture. Or the second point was, you leave your country itself and you can keep your heritage, your German or Latin heritage. And to make it a little bit more personal, my grandmother, as she was a little child, was also affected, and she was also one of the many people who left the country itself for a better future. And she always told me how crucial it was, how really it was a moment where her heart broke to leave this country, where she grew up, where she has her home, where she knew all the things, where she knew even or every mountain peak itself. And this was really the fire which she gave to me. And also, if you're seeing that maybe with the Second World War it ended, but the struggle itself, it didn't end. And maybe the fascist party and everything was stopped itself. But till the mid-60s, till the 70s, Italy still continued to invite, to get the majority of the people of South Tyrol to make it a normal Italian-speaking province, called like this. But we South Tyrolians, we never gave up. We fight, and it was also in some kinds of a bloody fight. But till the end of the day, now we have an autonomy region which is really, really progressing. And we have also a good future for us, young people which are really willing to get the emotion in itself and to see, okay, we can do this. And I think it's all our obligation as we're sitting here to give this fire, this power, what we have inside us, that we are stronger together to our new generations, that we can raise them and see, okay, together we can build a new Europe, we can seek for independence, because what we currently have, it's just not us. It's just we're still obeying, and this is our time to fight for a better future. To make it short, I'm glad that you're all here, and I'm glad that we all have you in our fight for freedom, for independence, and for a better Europe. Thank you all.
Right. Gosh, it's not often I have to tip the microphone down, but here we have our final speaker. We were having a speaker from Veneto, but he's not speaking here now. So our fourth and final speaker for this session, which does leave a bit more time for questions, is Nick Peters from Flanders. Nick is a historian, a director of the Flemish People's Movement. He's chief editor of its newspaper. He's a member of the Flemish Peace Movement and the Language Action Committee. He's been writing and publishing opinion articles on the history and goals of the Flemish national movement, and he's trying to encourage a discourse on the unification of all democratic formations that strive for an independent Flemish republic. He's also a free-time cartoonist, which sounds like a useful skill to have to me. And let's hear from him now, Nick Peters.
Paul is a bit taller than me, but I think we'll figure it out. Dames en heren, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. As a representative of the Vlaamse Volksbeweging, I am honored by the gracious and welcome and hospitality we have enjoyed as partakers of this conference of nations and regions that share similar objectives in obtaining an autonomous future, away from bureaucratic governance that has little attention for and affinity with the will of the people it presides over, be it on a national or on an international level. Today, the Vlaamse Volksbeweging is still the largest apolitical independence organization in Flanders, and it is our goal to keep growing in order to maintain a relevant position in the long-standing debate on the future of the Belgian Federation and the young nation of Flanders. Those who would visit our National Secretariat in Antwerp would notice that on the first floor there is a framed declaration on the wall concerning an earlier manifesto of the European Partnership for Independence. It dates back to the 14th of July 2011 and was signed in the Flemish city of Bruges, that centuries ago was termed the Venice of the North for its prosperity as a center of trade and relative political freedoms and privileges in the Middle Ages. Some of the signatories of this previous declaration of international solidarity were involved in the organization of this valuable conference. It gladdens me to see that since then our ranks have grown from 3 groups, the Flemish, the Scottish and the Catalans, to all of you here. The Vlaamse Volksbeweging has always been and still is a proud member of the current ISEC collective, both for historic and future reasons. For those who would be less aware of what Flanders and our independence movement are about, I will try to briefly explain this. At the heart of the Flemish movement is a Flemish patriotic interpretation of how the unique identity of our Flemish community should be continuously explored and strengthened, to maintain that what we are as a result of our history, traditions, culture, language, and, last but not least, the prominent principle that was often the central topic in our hymns. We want to be free, to be able to live and function in a system that corresponds with our democratic wishes and preserve our way of life, despite efforts of powers that aim to extinguish it through the ages, be it the Spanish, the Austrians, the French, and certain Belgian elites who never truly respected these aims. In 1830, when the country of Belgium was founded, the Flemish found themselves in a system that was designed to break their cultural identity. The mother tongue of the majority of the, for a great part, impoverished population of this state was disrespected in all levels that make for a fair and democratic society, like higher education, jurisdiction, administration, and so on. Those who would not give up their identity, their language, could but dream of progressing on the social ladder. Dutch-speaking people like myself became in fact second-rate citizens. What started as a cultural Flemish movement to break this cycle of discrimination throughout the long 20th century turned into a patriotic political machine to achieve self-government for the Flemish on a cultural and a political level. After many troublesome episodes, sacrifices and mistakes concerning choices in the methods to gain this autonomy as a nation, we now have a regional parliament that in past years has received more and more responsibilities. With exactly half of the seats in this parliament now in possession of the Flemish patriotic parties, it would only be logical that it becomes the motor for more autonomy and, of course, in the end, independence, from an archaic state system that is unfit to deal with current and future internal and external difficulties. A system that prohibits the Flemish to enjoy governance according to the signals they send out when they go voting for new parliaments. The Vlaamse Volksbeweging aims to keep pressure high to make work of this evolution, a progress that in these times is only possible when one can find support elsewhere, over one's own borders. Flanders has proven its solidarity with others in the past and will continue to do so. We do not doubt that this meeting in the capital of Scotland is another important step in our international cooperation. I thank you.
Right. Well, we've got time for questions now. So, Greg, if you'd be my glamorous assistant again, which you did so well the first time. Right, questions. Yep. Bill, and then there's lady over there. Oh, Selma, hi.
Thanks, Greg. Bill Ramsey, National Executive SNP and convener of the SNP Trade Union Group. And this will apply to a greater extent and lesser to some of the speakers. The far right, the growth of the far right, have you any comments about the growth of the far right through your political lens? Thank you.
Bill, wait. Just, I'd hardly heard that, and I speak
okay,
your
sorry.
language. The far right.
It's about the growth of the far right through your political lens, how you view that.
Okay. Selma, put your hand up, it'll help Greg. Right. And then we're looking for two more. This quiet side of the house, almost pantomime season, come on. Right.
Good afternoon. Could I just take a moment and say thank you to SIC and the ICEC for organising that today. Thank you very much. Bill has just stolen my question, so very quickly. Could I ask how you are using the media and social media to enforce, to promulgate, to push your agenda? We've been introduced to the fact we only have one newspaper, and we rail against the state broadcasters who ignore or denigrate what we're trying to do within an independence movement. So how are you using the media to advantage? Thank you.
Okay. Right. There's basically one, since I did taunt this side of the room. Let's go here. And then there's somebody, I've only can describe you as young, who's at the back, which is always a pleasing novelty. Yes.
Mike Pickham from the Radical Independence Campaign in Scotland. The F word, federalism, is often used in opposing Scottish independence. But what do you see as being the main differences between federalism in your states, or kind of federalism in the case of Denmark, and the advantages of full independence? What arguments do you use? And in particular, in a globally connected world, is the question of membership of international organisations and the right to send your own delegates to international organisations, supranational organisations, a major part of the argument for a full independence.
Right. I'll repeat these questions, don't worry, because it's quite hard with the acoustics somehow to hear this. And the final one from the younger chap at the back. Yeah, who knows he's the young chap? He's already on his feet.
Josh Robertson, National Executive Member of the ALBA Party. Given it's been 10 years since our referendum, the national mood here can be a wee bit doom and gloom. So from your own perspectives, can you maybe gee us up a wee bit and tell us what the Scottish independence movement has done well and what advantages we still have that maybe we can't see from the wood from the trees?
Okay, so we've got one question which is asking about your attitudes towards the far right in your country, in your movement. Another which is asking how you manage the media and social media. Is it so stacked against you as it feels like it is here? A third one, the difference between federalism and independence. What you think you would, because some of you are in federal arrangements. I mean, we're not here. So what is the difference? Because in Scotland, a lot of the time, we're told by people who then don't quite deliver that a federal Britain would be the answer to everything, not independence. So if you've got views on that. And the final one is basically, I don't know if you can get this in English, but big us up. The question at the back was, we're all feeling a bit down 10 years after the independence referendum in Scotland. From your perspective, what do you see when you see, what's happening in Scotland, and what do you think we still have going for us? And I'm just going to chuck a third one in of my own, which is what you get for standing here beside the microphone, which was, it strikes me of all the speakers we've had so far, all of your independence campaigns are very centred around your language. And we aren't. What do you think about that? So, how, because language doesn't play such a big role here, since we speak the same language as the rest of the country from which we wish to be separate, broadly speaking. So, it would be interesting to me to know what you think about that. So, let's work from Flanders backwards, so to speak.
So the first question asked, it is quite a complex topic to try and explain in just a couple moments, but just to be short. In Flanders, basically for, let's say, around 80 years, we have a strong right-wing part to our movement, that first right for federalization. We'll talk about that in a second. And it has always been a part of our movement that even though there have been traumatic experience in the past, of course, it has never truly faded away completely. And indeed, that's also a bit of the ascension of the third question asked. At the moment, Belgium is a federal state, which means that there are 3 regions, Flanders, Wallonia, and the territory of Brussels, simply put, which are all equal, but they all have their own responsibilities, sometimes also partly shared. Now, just like many other countries, once in a while we are confronted with certain crisis situations. And then the principle of all the levels at the moment in the federation being equal comes under pressure. With that, I want to say, for many decades, basically since the founding of Belgium, the region of Flanders has always been voting in a different sense than the south, than Wallonia. They have different future perspectives. That's basically the core of our movement at the moment. Now, when it comes to elections in this federal state, to form a federal parliament, it isn't the case that Flemish people could vote for people living in Wallonia and vice versa. Every single federal elections, the democracy of Flanders and the democracy of Wallonia are put together. And dus in the sense, half of the parliament is filled with representatives from Flanders, the other half by representatives of Wallonia and Brussels. Now, the thing is, because of these different views, there is never true stability on the federal level. It is by now very difficult to form federal governments. I think maybe some of you are aware that we have the World Championship a couple of years ago, about 500 days, I believe, without a federal government, because of the difficulty of uniting these two democracies. To come to the point, certainly for that first question, having difficulties forming a balanced government makes it impossible to have a clear answer to modern day problems that we are confronted with. And it means that as long as this system exists, certain problems that societies are faced with and that are often in the media will never stop being a baseline for parties, for example, from the far right. Now, it is true that the far right has always had a certain wing in our movement, but from the moment that there would be more independence from our region and there would be a more efficient government that could deal with difficulties in a more efficient way, that would take away the whole core of the reason of existing of this wing. Now, at the moment that isn't the case, and that is why they have grown again. We have, and I'll finish with that, we have had our recent elections in June. The more moderate Flemish regionalist party that in the end also strives for independence, has gained, if I'm not mistaken, a bit more than 25% of the votes of the Flemish. The radical right has obtained about 23%, which means that 50% of the seats, as I've said during my speech, my short speech, is in our hands. And now it is my firm belief, but it could be a mentality maybe just only for Flanders or uniquely, but that we should use this momentum, the fact that half of the regional parliament is in our hands, that we should look for the positive sides of cooperation and to afterwards focus on those fields that need to be dealt with, but in, of course, a democratic way, if that's an answer. I'll immediately go on to the, because I'll be very short, social media. Of course, a lot of young people are today attracted to the political parties because they see in it a perspective of more personal profit, gains on the short term. And it is our goal, by indeed having more attention for social media, to make sure that young people also in Flanders understand the importance of organizations that are apolitical, that are outside the party political game, because we are sure that in case there would be electoral defeats for the Flemish national movement, there should always be a baseline to fall back to, also with young people. So that's the answer to that. Federalization, or federalism, excuse me, I've already covered. Scotland, the impressions are, well, Flanders will always be sympathetic towards Scotland and its independence movement, as I've also stated. Maybe there should be more efforts made, and we all share a responsibility in that, to keep our contacts closer and to try and strive to, I mean, this conference is a great initiative, but I believe that more such efforts should be made throughout the year. And then for finishing, language, Scotland, well, I believe, as I've also shortly said in my speech, language was the core business why at first a cultural and then a political movement in Flanders started, because people were discriminated on the basis of it. I'm sure that was also part for a bit of the Scottish experience, but it is my impression, and maybe I can be corrected in that, that's mostly a topic or a problem from the past, in the sense that people have less interest in the issue.
Maybe combining the first with the last one for South Tyrol case will give a little more deeper insight. So basically the special rights what South Tyrol has, the laws and everything which are written down in the constitution, are based that South Tyrol has a German and Latin speaking minority. This is the basic that South Tyrolean have an autonomy, nothing more, nothing less. And if we are coming to left and right in this kind of thing, we see it in South Tyrol that they, let's call it like left and right, not my terms, but the progressive forces don't see that. They don't want a separation of the three different languages or the three different people groups in South Tyrol. They want a common living together. They want a multi-ethnical society in this kind of thing. But at the end of the day, this multi-ethnic society is killing the basis for the autonomy of South Tyrol, which is based on the German and Latin-speaking minority. So in this case of South Tyrol, it's a little bit a struggle to say, okay, where it's coming from. Also, if we see it in an Italian-wide perspective, in Italy, it doesn't depend if the party is left, the party is right. All parties at the end of the day are national parties. They don't care about South Tyrolean minority rights at all. So it is for us a special case maybe, but I'm glad if people from left, from right want to work together to seeking an independent country, to seeking freedom together, I'm more than happy to welcome to it. The reality at the end of the day, it's not like it is. Maybe one word to media, but then we can maybe skip a little bit of things. But for Scotland also, it's hard, because you have to struggle within the society itself, within that. For us, this case, as just explained, it's more, maybe a little bit more easier, a little bit more simpler, but the struggle at the end of the day is the same. And also for media, yes, we try, we have established own patriotic media, which is more or less, in our favor, what is also giving out news which other news won't share in this kind of manner, to make it short.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the questions. One thing that I didn't mention before was so we had these movements in waves. So this movement is very much the young people who are in the lead of the movement that is happening right now. And actually we are fighting against, someone asked me when we were having lunch, so who are you up against? And of course we are up against the Danish government, and the Danish politics are very, very racist. And I think I'm not going to go into a whole rant about far-right policy or all the things that are happening around in Europe, because they scare me so much. But because of the young people who are leading the movement, I think social media is, I'm going to say, inevitable. Inevitable, thank you. I always have trouble remembering that word. Yeah. So much of my work is on social media, and it's such a gift in a way, because I also follow a lot of people in Canada and Alaska, and I also want to mention that my people have also been divided into 4 different colonial borders. So we are in Greenland, colonized by Denmark. The Inuit in Canada were colonized by Canada. And then we have Inuit in Alaska. And finally also Inuit who live in Siberia and Russia. And it makes it really hard for us to actually be able to work together, because it's so divided, and we have also historically different experiences of colonization and things that we are up against. But I really, really imagine and hope for a union of Inuit in those territories. Very much inspired by the Samis, who are the only recognized indigenous peoples in Europe. They are divided in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia too. And they have such a strong voice because they work together, and I really hope that for our people as well. I also want to mention that about language, it's very important. And our official language is Galatlisut, our indigenous language, and up to 70% only speak this language. And sometimes I feel like even though that's what many people are fighting for around the world, it can be a disadvantage, because many of the policies are only in Danish, so it leaves out a lot of people who are not able to fully understand what's happening. And recently, just 2 days ago, there was a big fuss in the Danish government. We have 2 elected members from Greenland in the Danish parliament, and one of them was fighting. Her name is Agi Matilda, and she was fighting for the possibility to speak our language in the Danish government, of course, with the simultaneous translation. And she was basically, she was allowed to, but they didn't allow people to ask questions for her speech. So she was basically left out of the democracy making of the parliament, which was so painful to watch. But I think there is also another strength in having your own language, and that's social media has a really hard time understanding what we say, so they have a hard time banning us. And please don't tell people, but so in a way in that sense, sometimes it can be a secret weapon to, yeah. But thank you so much.
Yeah, I think my colleagues here have said a lot of good things, so I don't think I have so much to add. I'm happy that I come from a country where the extreme right is non-existent. There might be some persons, but no party. Of course, we have a right wing, and unfortunately, it looks like they're going to win the next election in 2 years' time. I hope not, but we do have right and left, and then we have unionists, and then we have independents, and then we have a religion going through all the parties. So it's complicated even in a small country. But I would like to answer a bit to this question about the arguments against independence and to keep like federal or Rigsfællesskapen, which is the name of Rigsfællesskapen, which is the name of the coalition. Yeah, it's a kind of Commonwealth, but actually it's Denmark ruling Faroe Islands and Greenland when it comes to certain matters, and which I mentioned in my speak. And the arguments are often those: if you get independence, then you will isolate yourself. Right before the last election in Faroe Islands, the Danish Prime Minister came to the Faroe Islands and he intervened in our election to our parliament, and he went into the media. All the journalists were running after him and making interviews, and he said, "Oh yes, you want independence, you will get very isolated." And it's so provocative because, I mean, in my view, independence, actually, we are never going to be alone. We want to be in coalitions. We want even to be in a coalition with Denmark. But we want to be on equal footing. And we want the people of Faroe Islands to choose with whom we are together and in which organizations we are members. I mean, it's really a question about democracy. And the Danes are so nice. I mean, I'm married to one myself. I like them. It's not a question about that. It's just a question about people don't understand. They don't see that they also are a power that are really stepping on both Greenland and Faroe Islands very often. And I know when I read my speech, and I think Leslie just wrote a book about fabulous Denmark, and it is a very nice country. But, I mean, you have to listen to when you have a totally other culture, other language, other people, and they always had their own history. You have to listen, what do you want? And they also say, you will get worse healthcare. No, today, Faroese taxpayers pay for our healthcare. When we send patients to Denmark, we pay even expensive to Denmark. They earn a lot of money because they are treating some of our patients. Of course, we need to have those cooperations. And then it's education. They say your young people will not get any education. Yes, all the Nordic countries have made an agreement that they can come to us and get education. We can go to them. I am educated both in Denmark and in Norway for free. That's how the Nordic countries cooperate. So that are the arguments against. And of course, we want to find a solution that is good for us, a very small country, which cannot have all the functions as bigger countries. But, well, I'm very glad for this convention because I think it's so important also to get the media to help us. I'm afraid that's very hard. I cannot tell a good story about to get the media to help us, because I think they are too much run by the forces that are against independence, at the moment at least.
Well, thanks very much to everyone there. It's just an interesting point in all this is actually a film rather than a book. No more books for a while, I'll tell you, about Denmark, but fair point. There is a book, however, in which there's a chapter that Bjørst features. In fact, she co-wrote it at the back with all the other books. There's also a little leaflet that you're very welcome to take. It's a campaign I'm involved with called Build a Local Scotland. And actually one of the other things, so I don't want to go on about this, that would be true of all these countries, small nations, regions, is that they all have genuine local democracy. And just if you're getting your head around the Faroes, I think 2 of your municipalities joined, so I think you have 29 now, is it? 29 what? Municipalities? Yes. Right, just get your head around that. 55,000 people, 29 councils. Scotland, 5 million people, 32 councils. So we're kind of off beam, massively off beam. So I'm just encouraging you, please, there's a leaflet at the back. It's got a wee booklet, it's got all the stuff as to why we should change. We're looking for a citizens' assembly to come up with a template. We'll be taking evidence from some of these countries. It's free, take it away, it means I don't need to take it home. Thank you very much. Someone's already taken the initiative. You see, that's how you do it. You pick it up and you take it away. Right, can we just please close with this session with a big thank you to Björst, Akka, Paul and Nick. Yes. You can go and warm up again now. Get your coat on.